Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. 2 British military transport planes carrying anti-tank weapons to Ukraine had to change course to fly around Germany because Berlin did not want to unnerve Moscow by allowing the airspace to be crossed. 2 British planes flying with cargo containing light anti-tank defence systems for Ukraine skirted Germany yesterday as authorities in Berlin refused to allow them to fly through their airspace. Germany simply has its own interests, with which it dominates the whole of Europe, and it tries to play out these interests in a way that is convenient for it. And it is well known that German interests include good relations with Russia. You may analyse the last few hundred years, and these efforts, good relations, are manifested in the same way. Yesterday, German Foreign Minister Anna Baerbock visited Kiev and promised to help, but clearly declined to supply weapons to Ukraine on the eve of upcoming aggression from Russia. Today, the German Foreign Minister visited Moscow and met her Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. She pledged to continue negotiations within the framework of the Normandy format. Those common rules are the foundation of our common European house. For Germany, they are our basis of existence. Therefore, we have no other option but to defend those common rules, even if this means paying a high economic price. We have repeatedly reiterated at different levels of this federal government, in case energy is being used as a weapon, that this would have consequences on the pipeline. More than 100,000 Russian soldiers and tanks and guns have gathered near Ukraine in recent weeks, for no understandable reason. And it's not hard to see this as a threat. Since the Minsk agreement has been negotiated in the Normandy format, it's important that we come back to the negotiating table in the Normandy format. We both, as foreign ministers, and that is an immediate result of our talks, do everything to ensure that we can now take the steps for this as quickly as possible. Lavrov reiterated accusations from Russia that Ukraine was sabotaging the implementation of agreements aimed at ending the conflict between Ukrainian government forces and pro-Russian separatists in the east of the country. It is the largest commercial project of the last decade designed to ensure the energy security of Germany and Europe as a whole. We drew the attention of our German colleagues to the counterproductiveness of attempts to politicise this project. The tense situation in Ukraine was discussed by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and the NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg. We expect Russia to de-escalate the situation, and this could include a troop reduction on the Ukrainian border. We are, of course, ready to enter into a serious dialogue with Russia on security issues in Europe. The former German government and the then Chancellor, in close consultations with me and the then Foreign Minister, has agreed on this issue with the United States, its government and the President. We support all aspects which belong to this agreement, and one is that it is clear that there will be a high price to pay and that everything will have to be discussed should there be a military intervention in Ukraine. Last November, the German Foreign Ministry criticised Ukraine for using a combat drone in operations against Russian-backed separatists. Right now, Germany aims to open up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and to achieve this they use all tools available, including instigating internal conflict in NATO. Nord Stream 2 gas trade is the foundation of the alliance between Germany and Russia and the guarantee of the energy dominance of Berlin. I perceive this policy, that is not allowing planes in, as a desire to soften this policy of the Russian Federation. Russia is trying to fuel the conflict all the time, even if the invasion is not going to happen, says Thomas Dziwachewski. Last week, shortly after the end of the OSCE talks in Vienna, Ukrainian websites were attacked, more than 70 sites, including those belonging to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Education. There were also messages in Polish threatening Ukraine with serious consequences. This Thursday, the presidents of Poland and Ukraine will meet in the presidential mountain villa in Wisła City. A possible Russian invasion is definitely on the agenda. Poland is building a coalition of countries that object to the European Union's new Fit for 55 climate package, which will affect less affluent EU citizens, said a Polish government spokesperson. The Fit for 55 package's goal is to update the EU's 2030 climate and energy laws to reflect the 55% net emissions reduction target that the EU set for 2030. Adjusting to it will require investments estimated at around €500 billion a year by 2030, which means an additional €350 billion when compared to the cost of the EU climate programme adopted for 2011 to 2020. We are now building a coalition of countries that oppose some of these solutions as they shift the burden of the energy transformation to less affluent people, said government spokesman Piotr Muller. According to Muller, under Fit for 55, the top-of-the-class countries should reduce emissions in such a way that the European Union achieves its climate goal. Let Germany reduce to zero in 2030, he said. Earlier, Deputy Prime Minister and State Assets Manager Jacek Sasin said to Parliament that Poland would take all steps to protect Poles against the effects of the wrongly policy served by the European Commission. We will do everything we can to prevent the Fit for 55 package from entering into force, Sasin said. Poland and the Czech Republic resume negotiations on the operations of the Turów Lignite mine. Talks are taking place in Warsaw, and Poland now hopes to solve the problem. The previous Czech government politicised the conflict with Poland and the €500,000 daily fine imposed on Poland by the European Court of Justice. Warsaw refused to pay. In February last year, the Czech Republic filed a complaint against Poland to the European Court of Justice regarding the expansion of the Turów Lignite mine near the border. At the same time, they applied for a so-called provisional measure, that is, an order to suspend mining. The ECJ granted the Czechs' request and ordered an immediate halt to coal mining at Turów, and later imposed a record-breaking fine of €500,000 per day. French far-right presidential candidate Marine Le Pen touted a vision of a Europe of nations, challenging President Emmanuel Macron's push for solidarity and integration. France took over the 6-month rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union on the 1st of January. Le Pen, on the presidential ticket of her party, Rassemblement National or National Rally, spoke of a Europe that promotes economic patriotism, control of borders and national energy strategies. The European Union has increasingly shown itself to be more intrusive and more authoritarian, unceasingly more intolerant to all opposition, and close-minded to everything that is put into question. It is in this context of inexorable continuity that Emmanuel Macron has chosen to inscribe the French presidency for the next 3 months. He is, in effect, the only head of state not to want to use this presidency to advance the special interests of his country. With regard to Europe, we are opposing Emmanuel Macron with a national vision, a vision that respects people, history and national sovereignty, Le Pen told journalists. She warned of a European Union migration strategy that seizes control from states and hands it to NGOs. As President, I will carry France's strong voice, which the continent needs, to turn towards a Europe of nations. What had been unthinkable some years ago is, at present, possible. In this European Union, almost everything remains to be changed. At the heart of this new project for Europe, a Europe for security is clearly a priority. The European Union's reluctant eastern members, the affluent northern states where many of the newcomers aspire to live, and the Mediterranean shore countries where they mainly arrive, have been clashing over where to locate people since the 2015 migration crisis showed existing EU migration rules were inadequate. 3 months before the first round of presidential elections on April the 10th, Le Pen is a front-runner, along with Conservative candidate Valérie Pécresse, to go head-to-head in the second round with Macron, who has not yet declared his candidacy. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.